Hello. Welcome, Ron.
Good morning, Marco. Good morning.
So, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. It's such a privilege to be in Estonia. I have the privilege to work here already for 5 years. Each time I come, it starts to feel a little bit like coming home. Actually, when I went to my hotel, I took out my home keys to get to the door.
All right. So today you're going to talk about very interesting things about, well, how Cleantech is actually changing the world.
Yeah.
So what has been your role so far in changing the world?
My role in changing the world. These are big words. I do it because I love to do it. Maybe a short CV then. I'm the founder and managing partner of Start You Up, and we help Cleantech startups and scale-ups accelerate to global success. There's now more than 10 who, according to my definition, achieved this. We've helped co-creating business accelerator programs with, amongst other, Climate Launchpad. I'll tell you about Climate Launchpad, Climate Kick, and InfoDev World Bank. Before that, I worked at McKinsey & Company for 12 years as an expert energy, renewable energy and climate change. And before that, I worked as an assistant professor, researcher, blah, in environmental economics. So they call me a Cleantech veteran already for 25 years.
Okay, very interesting. I know that you will have very interesting presentations, so we are all looking forward to that. So here's the clicker.
Thank you very much.
Luck.
Thank you, Estonia. Thank you. Can I start? Yeah? Okay, good morning, Estonia. Good morning, Tallinn. Cleantech. The one-liner is the Cleantech revolution is here to stay. Actually, that is a little bit conservative, I think, because what I'm hopefully going to tell you in the coming 50 minutes or so is that we're expecting a Cleantech explosion between 2020 and 2050. Marco asked me also to state what I like to do. This is a picture of me, and this is a picture of why did I take this picture? Because this picture was taken in the Climate Launchpad. Has anybody of you heard about the Climate Launchpad? Hands up. A few hands. Okay, thank you. The Climate Launchpad by now is the largest Cleantech business idea competition in the world. This year, the competition runs in 50 countries. And it's actually almost a startup itself. It was founded in 2014 by Frans Nauta. And I was the lucky guy to be part of the founding team. So it's almost a startup itself. In just 5 years, this competition went from 0 to 50 countries. So I get to travel a lot. And I'm the happy guy in the team of trainers of the Climate Launchpad who trains the 10 to 12 best ideas in each country in order to get to the national and global finals. And I'm going to invite you to apply after the speech. This is what keeps me awake at night. It's a little bit harsh. This was the Harvard Business Review at the end of last year, where it very boldly said we have about 12 years left as a humanity. Now, I'm not the type of guy who likes to look at problems. I like to think in solutions, but I think we cannot really avoid looking at this. It refers to the IPCC report. The IPCC is the International Panel on Climate Change from the United Nations. It's let's say, the scientific body of the United Nations. And I'm not going to talk about it for long, but what they're basically saying is that we have to keep our planet below a 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase, because above that we might see some strange effects. Flooding, storms, increasing temperatures, etc. And that doesn't go unnoticed, I would say, especially not in what I call, from my age, I'm 55, in the next generation. We see that in the Climate Launchpad. Especially the younger generation between 20 and, let's say, 35 are very concerned about this, and they're looking for solutions. And Greta Thunberg, I think, has become sort of the symbol of this generation on how they feel about their future. And I take that very seriously. So the agenda for today, I've tried to summarize the first bullet point. It's going to be, I invite you to fasten your seatbelts, because these discussions are usually quite emotional, and I've tried to come up with the latest fact on this, let's say, the status of the world. So I will go very fast, but I will base myself on public reports so you can read about it later. Global cleantech markets are expected to explode between 2020 and 2050 for economic reasons alone. Cleantech is in the money. Actually, for that reason, we don't really need that discussion on climate change. But since this is such a severe topic, we also have a window of opportunity now for humanity to avert catastrophic climate change. So it's good for the economy, and yeah, we're in a hurry. Since we're in a hurry, I'm going to talk briefly about how to accelerate clean tech, and how to build what I call clean tech highways to the market. I'm talking about accelerators, right? And then in the third part, Cleantech Forest is here, they're sitting in the front row. I have the privilege to work with them already for a couple of years. There's a success story to share about Estonian cleantech startups, which I would like to tell you about. So, the good news, test me out on this in the coming 40 minutes. Cleantech provides, yes, $1 trillion business opportunity of a lifetime for cleantech startups and scale-ups, and hopefully in this speech I can convince you about it. The bad news, we're in a hurry. If you believe in climate science, there are some discussions about it that I'm not going to into. I do. I believe in climate science. Okay? But first, the toolbox. I would like to introduce a short framework in order to be able to discuss the status of the world on this. And we use the same framework on what I would call the macro, meso, and microeconomic level. Macroeconomic level, think about countries or even the world as a whole. Mesoeconomic levels, think cities. In 2050, we're living with 10 billion people on this planet, and according to United Nations prediction, 70% will live in cities. And the microeconomic level is the level of companies, startups, scale-ups, etc. So here we go. So the box in the middle, I call scope of economic entity. I'm an environmental economist, and we think about economic systems and environment. It sounds a bit harsh, but use resources, economy inputs, and economy outputs. And in that way, it enables us to describe the main ones coming out of environmental centers. So climate impact is all about inputs and outputs in the economic system, I would say. The first one is freshwater resources. Right now, the world withdraws around 4,500 cubic kilometers of fresh water per year from this planet. 70% of that goes to agriculture, 20% of that water goes to industry, of which 3/4 energy, and 10% of that fresh water goes to, I would call, municipal water consumption. Food, how are we going to feed a growing population? The population is expected to grow from 7 billion people, rounded off, 7 billion people in 2020 until 10 billion people in 2050. The headliner is we need to increase our food production with 56%, but we cannot use more land. Right now, agriculture uses 50% of all the world's land. If we start using more, that goes at the cost of forests and wetlands that we actually need to convert CO2 and oxygen. Energy, I think the obvious discussion, everybody knows if you burn a lot of fossil fuels, you get a lot of emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, which causes global warming. There's a lot of economic value at stake. If Bloomberg 2 years ago estimated that if oil companies would have to leave all hydrocarbons in the ground, the economic value of that would be around $30 trillion. Raw materials, for instance, that's the materials we get out of our mines. For instance, lithium-ion resources. We need lithium-ion for the electric battery revolution, but do we, for instance, have enough cobalt? These things we have to really look at. So materials innovation on the input side is something very important. On the output side, we see emissions to air, land, and water. Emissions to air, for instance, are greenhouse gas emissions. It's a group of emissions of which CO2 and methane are the most famous ones, I would almost say. Greenhouse gas emissions cause global warming. Emissions to land and water, examples, think about fertilizers from agriculture and pesticides. According to the United Nations, this is going to be a severe and increasing problem. Solid waste, this is where the topic of the circular economy sits. All of our economic sectors produce waste. And the very hot topic, which is only a relatively small specific topic, is the topic of plastic waste to oceans. And then there's something in category which we would call nuisance noise, and think about inner city transport noise. Now, I'm going to speed up a little bit. So this input-output also is for cities. Again, 70% of the world population will live in cities by 2050. And it also is the case for companies and startups on the microeconomic level. So Cleantech startups reduce on the input and the output side. So this is my personal definition of Cleantech. This was also my conclusion out of my discussions with amongst others, World Bank. I would define Cleantech in a broad way. It's any technology that reduces climate impact on the input and output side in a substantial way, plus new business models for climate mitigation, so in order to reduce the climate impact, and also for climate adaptation. Unfortunately, we already have to adapt to climate. Think about floating cities and things like that, right? What we see in all of these accelerators, but I think a country like Estonia knows this, the business models are always way more important than the technology. It's never enough. So with Cleantech startups, we very heavily focus on developing the right business model around this technology. Okay, so for the definition, now let's scope Cleantech. What are global Cleantech markets? Here I base myself on the Kashan taxonomy. Kashan is an American consulting firm. It's a freely public available source, so you can go on the internet and find it yourself. The 8 main categories plus subcategories in the Kashan matrix outline the market sector areas where Cleantech startups and scale-ups are active in global markets. Boom. Now that's a full sentence. The reason why I'm taking this time is that not many people realize that it's really a big spectrum of markets. People used to think about Cleantech in the traditional way, as energy only, that's where it started, but we have much more to it now. So here it is. So in the left upper corner you see clean energy, which is the traditional market, but it has expanded to efficiency. Think building efficiency, think smart homes, think air conditioning in homes, etc. Then we have transportation, think electric vehicles and the Teslas and Elon Musks of this world. Think water, think agriculture, energy storage, battery storage, etc. Air and environment, that's where the circular economy topic sits. And think clean industry, materials innovation, manufacturing optimization, stuff like that. Now, all of these black bullet points that you see are global Cleantech markets. Some of them emerging, others already quite matured. So Cleantech, global Cleantech has some 60 global markets. Today, I will briefly like to take you through 3. I would love to discuss all 8. I do that in my classes, but it takes 2 days if you want to have all the facts. So now I'm going to really speed up and go fast in order to stay in time, okay? And I would like to start with energy. That's the most well documented because it's historically also the oldest segment. This is where big oil sits. This is where the discussion about climate change is. This is what nowadays, with the Greta Thunbergs of the world, gets people on the streets, actually. But this is also the area where clean energy sits, the rise and upcoming of wind and solar and geothermal, etc. Now, the storyline that I'm going to follow is this, because I'm going to show you a lot of facts and I'm going to do it fast, but all the sources are public. But since I would like to show you the facts as a backup, because otherwise you might not believe me. So what I'm going to tell you is that that cost of these clean technologies are coming really down very, very fast. We call that learning curves, until these technologies are in the money. And that's not only the case for energy, which is very well documented. It also holds for the other 7 categories in the Kashan matrix. Now, once these technologies come in the money, so once they are competitive with technologies already in the market, we should see global investments coming up, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. And that's exactly what happened. Between 2004 and 2017, global Cleantech investments have grown very strongly with an annual growth rate of, was it now 15 or 17? I forgot. It'll be in the slide. Substantial growth until we arrive in the year 2018, where especially solar PV and wind, and that's a strong statement, I'll show you the proof, is competitive and cheaper than all conventional electricity generation technologies, coal, gas, nuclear, etc. So then the question arises, if that's the case, what's then going to happen between 2022 and 2050? And that's what I'm going to show you. So this looks a bit technical. These are learning curves. The two on the left side are on a logarithmic scale. On the right side, you see it by the year. It's just examples of solar PV, onshore wind, and batteries. Now, this curve, what it shows you is with each doubling of the global manufacturing capacity of these technologies, we see cost reductions, right? And for solar PV, and then that cost reduction is called a learning rate. The source is Bloomberg New Energy Finance. They produce these reports. They have fantastic data about this. So with each doubling of the manufacturing capacity, the costs go down. For solar, that has been around 29%. For wind, this has been around 19%, and we see the same developments now for lithium-ion batteries. Now, I see somebody of you looking like this, prepared for that. So here you see the same curve, but now you see the solar cost decrease in absolute terms of absolute units of measurements. And you see a very, very strong cost reduction from solar silicon from $94 per watt to now 30 cents per watt in 2017. Now, if that happens, then we should also see global investments coming up. By the way, the CAGR was 15%, not 17%. And here's sort of the proof of that. I base myself on data from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. The graph is from my company, Start You Up. So between 2004 and 2017, global investments grew by 15%. In 2017, 280 billion was invested in clean energy. And you might wonder, where is that invested in? Well, not surprisingly, it's mostly solar and wind because they are in the money, but the other technologies are coming down this learning curve too, and will soon be in the money too, and many of them are already. Then if you split that out geographically, China is clearly leading the way in this on a global level. Then we have Europe, the USA, etc. It's changing very fast because most investments are now going to developing countries. In 2017, 2/3 of all global investments went to developing countries, not to developed countries. So it's not happening in Western Europe anymore. It's happening in regions like India, Africa, etc. The cost reduction. Now, when we arrive in 2018, we see that especially solar PV and wind are in the money almost everywhere in the world. This graph, and I'm going to show you next, looks very complicated. It's a graph from French investment banker Lazare. But each year it comes out, half of the energy industry is looking at it. It's a huge amount of work in one slide. It looks like this. So what you see here is above the dotted line is alternative cost ranges of alternative forms of energy on an LCOE cost basis. Too technical, I won't go into that. And below you see conventional sources of energy like coal, gas, etc. Now, just to look at solar PV crystalline, centralized, not on rooftops. The rooftops are coming to cost competitiveness too. Solar is cheaper in many places already than gas combined cycle even. We see already in the United States, solar plus storage deals and bids winning from traditional gas peaker plants. Same holds for wind. So this is the short summary. Solar and wind are really in the money. And then the question arises, what's going to happen in the future? And these are my own words, so I take the responsibility for it. I call it an explosion. Al Gore once said, the Cleantech revolution is bigger than the industrial revolution and the information revolution combined. The industrial revolution because of the scale of it, and the information revolution because of the speed of it. Now, I digged up the latest data for you for this presentation. I agree with Al Gore on the scale. It's even bigger. Right? The speed, I'm not so sure, not because I do not agree, but I don't have the right data. You judge when I show you them. Now, I was looking for data when McKinsey & Company, just in January this year, just 3 months ago, came out with this very comprehensive research. And it's an excellent piece of work. And it's publicly available. You can download it from the McKinsey website. So if I'm going too fast, download it for yourself. It was a modeling effort across 146 countries, 30 sectors, and 55 energy products. Right? And what you see on the right-hand side there is just a proof of the level of granularity of this modeling effort for just the transport sector as one of the 30. It's quite an impressive piece of work. And it also matches my, let's say, intuition about what's going to happen in the future. You judge for yourself what you think. So I'm going to share with you the 5 top-level main bullet points out of their reference case. It's just 2 months old, so it's really hot from the press, right? The first one is what I call economy inputs, primary energy consumption. Remember the input-outputs? Global total primary energy demand plateaus, starts to go flat after 2035, despite strong population expansion, 7 to 10 billion people in 2050, and despite economic growth, as predicted by McKinsey. Now that's actually remarkable. The population grows so fast and it plateaus. Let's have a look at that. The next 3 bullet points are the 3 main energy sectors within the economy. It's electricity, it's oil, and it's gas. So electricity, this one shook me in a positive way. Electricity consumption doubles until 2050, while renewables are projected to make up over 50% of generation by 2035 and almost 75% by 2050. That's huge. Gas continues to grow its share of global energy demand, the only fossil fuel to do so, and then plateaus after 2035. The growth of gas is not in power generation, it will go down there. Gas is needed in industry. Hopefully hydrogen will start playing a role in the future there. Oil demand, the growth will slow down with a projected peak early in 2030, and then oil will start to go down, maybe forever. I'll show you how that goes. And then economy outputs, and that's the harsh news. It is harsh news. Despite all this increase in renewables, etc., we have to step up in terms of our climate because it's still a far cry away to stay below the 2 degrees Celsius line. I'm an optimist. We can have in the discussion why maybe some of this stuff is not captured in modeling, but it's a serious message. So now I'm going to go quick. I'm just going to flip through the graphs very quickly, otherwise I won't make it to the end, okay? So what you see here is global primary energy demand as from the Industrial Revolution in 1850 until the predicted ones in 2050. And what you see is actually that, is it working? Yes, that it's plateauing, well, around 2035, mainly because renewables get into the mix. So this is all of the energy that the world sort of extracts from our planet, right? You see that also the point 1 is the CAGR, that's the annual growth rate of that curve. As soon as that starts to go to 0 or minus, it starts to go down. So it's plateauing. Electricity, I wrote it again. This sort of shook me. McKinsey and Company forecast a doubling of global electricity consumption until 2050. That would be like saying, okay, we have our global planet, and we put all the lights on, right? All the lights, from, let's say, New York to Tokyo and from Oslo to Cape Town, and then we have another world with the lights on. Doubling of the global consumption. And of these 2 worlds, 75% will be renewables by 2050. That's enormous. Now, this electricity consumption growth is mainly caused by growth of world population and the upcome of the middle class in growth countries and growth regions like India and China. And hey, of course, they also all want air conditioning and the fridge, stuff like that. And that's why this is happening. It's the main reason. So here's the graph. So first of all, you see it doubling from 27 million terawatt hours now to 1,000 terawatt hours in 2050, while at the same time, you see it going up to 73%, right? Then the 73% is the solar in the yellow, the wind in the green, the hydro in the blue. There's lots of more new technologies. That's why I'm an optimist coming to the market, but that's the prediction. Now, so the word is electrification, right? So the curve on the left-hand side that you see is that the annual growth rate of electricity is going up, while other fuels are sort of remain flat. The main driver of that electrification is road transport, electric vehicles, not only in the passenger market, but also in the commercial vehicles markets, etc. Also in buildings, right? And a little bit to a lesser extent in industry. Now, guess what? You can see big companies and oil majors already, I assume they know this, but you can see them changing their strategy. Just very recently, Shell announced that it's aiming to become the world's largest electricity company. I mean, there's another world of electricity to fill. And what you see now happening is that oil majors high up in the value chain are going down in the value chain. Shell actually is acquiring scale-ups in battery storage, for instance. Sonnen was a recent acquisition. Repsol, Spanish Repsol, is also acquiring battery startups for that reason. They're all changing their strategy because they want to get out of oil and into the electricity sector. It's going a little bit, it's getting a little bit crowded there. Gas, I'm going to go quick with gas, but gas will the year is 2035, and the main reason is that gas is still quite big in industry. I'm an optimist, hydrogen is coming. But that's the only reason why gas will still be there at quite a substantial rate as the only fossil fuel. So it's not in power generation. Oil, let's have a short look at oil. So what you see here is that oil is predicted to peak in the early 2030s at 108 million barrels per day. And after that is predicted to go down. And by the way, you see that the dark blue line, road transport, is the main driver of that going down, right? And the oil usage of road transport is expected to peak in 2025, right? And what you see on the right lower side there is actually the flat growth rates of oil. Oh, and chemicals. Chemicals is where the plastics sit. I'm hoping that McKinsey is wrong with this, because what we see happening now with plastics is that I would say there's a revolution going on the demand side of the market. People just don't take it anymore. They don't want to buy plastics, right? So hopefully McKinsey is wrong. I don't know if they included this in the scenarios, that there might be disruptions on people simply not buying the products anymore. Now, what effect does all of this positive news have on our global system in terms of output? That's a little bit of a harsh message. CO2 emissions are expected to go down by 20%, primarily driven by reductions in emissions from coal. But it's still a far cry away from a 2-degree pathway, let alone a 1.5-degree pathway. And for many people, this is quite a harsh message. So what do you see happening? You see global capital actually divesting out of oil, right? In December 2016, there was already 5 trillion of worth divested out of oil, and right now, as we speak, that number is $8 trillion US. Things are moving very, very quickly right now. What is big money saying about this? Well, tackle climate or face financial crash, say the world's biggest investors, managing 32 trillion euros in assets. The new warriors of climate change, ladies and gentlemen, are not climate activists. These are spreadsheet managing investment bankers. They know that Cleantech is in the money, and they know it will all cost us an enormous amount of money if we are not in time considering climate change. It's a big thing. You can either all make a lot of money and do the right thing, or do the wrong thing and then it will cost us money. So here's some example just out of the press. I published these on my Start You Up Facebook page. You can go there for free. It's, I'm sharing this with the world. These are just a few examples that also big finance sees this, right? And I think that's actually quite positive news. Okay, so I think it's fair to say that the emerging trend in clean energy is that trillions of US dollars are shifting out of fossil fuels and into clean energy. And that should also be good news for promising clean tech startups and scale-ups, don't you think? Okay, let's switch quickly to water. These are going much more quicker. I don't have the time. I just give you a very short impression of this. You see water. What you see in the middle is the colored areas are water-stressed areas in the world. So what's going to happen from 2020 to 2050? This is the proof of what I told you in the beginning. These are data from the food and agricultural innovation. This is also water withdrawals as from the Industrial Revolution until now. I didn't know that the figure for agriculture was that big. It's 70%. So the water we use for water irrigation, etc. And mind you, most of not most, I don't know the facts, but I assume that a lot of, let's say, irrigation and stuff like that, we do still with fossil fuel, diesel pumps. And I'm going to show you a fantastic alternative of a Cleantech scale-up who has come up with a solution for that. Okay, 20% out of industry is energy that uses the water. Think about electricity generation plants from coal that use cooling water for electricity generation. So maybe there's a positive side effect if renewables come, you don't need that water anymore. Let's see. So these are the water-stressed area. It's a report of the United Nations that came out in just last month. And I think everybody knows the story of Cape Town. Last year, Cape Town almost hit day zero, where the entire city was running out of water. And the sad news is Cape Town will not be the only city. And with the growth of the world population, we are likely to see more water stress. Estonia, the world needs your software for solving management problems, water management problems. I will get to that. Okay? So in my wording, water is the new oil. How on earth are we going to provide 10 billion people by 2050 with clean and safe water for private consumption and agricultural water irrigation? Now, one thing, McKinsey Global Institute as well, we have to think about smart cities, and there's good news here. Smart cities have the potential to reduce water consumption by 30%. Your software, Estonia, I'm having a call to action here, right? And I will show you an example of what heroes as Cleantech startups are capable of. This is the story of Akista. It's the story of the founder Pratap Thapa. He lived in Nepal, came to study in the Netherlands, developed the Bursar Pump, and is now very successful in many countries. He was one of the top 10 entrepreneurs invited out of the global entrepreneurs to present at the UN General Assembly in October last year. And I would like to share his story. What his pump does is it's a run-of-river pump that can actually get water up for water irrigation. Now, this is a high mountain, but since water goes to the lowest point for irrigation, you always need to fight gravity, no matter where you are, right? So this pump is not only a solution in developing countries, it also starts to be a solution in developed countries. This pump can pump up to 20 meters high, 2 kilometers broad, and it can provide 20 to 80,000 liters. Nice thing about this pump is it goes 24 hours a day. Would you like to hear a story? Here it is. Hope it works.
Nepal has a lot of rivers, more than 6,000 rivers go across the country. And if you look at the lands just next to rivers, people are always complaining they don't have irrigation water, they're struggling with it. We are working with water, so water is aqua, and we started a journey to provide water to a lot of people, so Quest. So aqua plus Quest, that's how we formed Akista. We identified a global opportunity, but we were always very close to Nepal. We divided it into 3 phases. The first phase, we demonstrated the technology. We found suitable sites ourselves, we went to install ourselves, and we provided the pumps for free. And after that, in 2016, we started selling the pumps to NGOs and government organizations and projects. And slowly we are going to a 3rd phase where now we have a local manufacturing partner, so we're producing some of the parts here itself, we're assembling it here. Now that it has worked successfully, we try to replicate it in other countries. The Bursar Pump is a hydropowered pump. It is a water wheel that is sitting on a floating platform, so you put it on a river, it floats on the river, and the flowing river sort of rotates the wheel. And there are 2 spirals on the side where the water and air goes in, and the air column is compressed by water column. So the pressure is built in these spirals, and then you have a connecting output hose from which you take the water. So basically the pumping happens just by a river rotating a water wheel, and there is no mechanical action in the pumping. So that's why this pumping principle requires very little maintenance.
पहिला हामी यो वर्षा पम्प आउनुभन्दा अगाडि पहिला अब दिनको 6 घण्टासम्म पानी बोकेर हाल्नु पर्थ्यो। त्यै पनि बिरुवालाई नपुग हुन्थ्यो हामी लगभग वर्षै पुग्न लाग्यो चलाएको तर सिजनमा चलाउँछौँ यो पम्प यसबाट धेरै फाइदा जस्तो लाग्यो हामीलाई त्यही अब यो वर्षा पम्पले सिँचाइ गर्दा बोट बिरुवाको साथै हाम्रो आय आर्जनमा पनि हल्का फाइदा मान्यो आफ्नो नुन तेल खाने बाटो बच्चाहरूको कापी कलम किनिदिने बाटो हो अनि यो सिँचाइले गर्दा बोट बिरुवा पनि राम्रो उत्पादन हुने त्यो धेरै फाइदा लाग्यो
हामीले खरबुजा लगाउँथ्यौँ पहिला पनि अहिले पनि लगाउँछौँ पहिला बोकेर पानी सिँचाइ गर्दाखेरि 8 किलोभन्दा माथि हुँदैन थियो अहिले त वर्षा पम्पले गर्दाखेरि पानी पनि पुग्छ त्यसमा पानी पुगेर 12 केजी भन्दा माथि नै हुन्छ 12 केजी 15 केजी
For me, good technology is something that can really help people jump the ladder of economic prosperity to the next level. And that is what I think are good technologies for empowering people. Going from Nepal to Netherlands and then trying to build a business there. It's sometimes difficult, but there is also a lot of support around it and the team has been amazing. It's a story of finding the right teammate at the right time. When we started out, our ambition was to become a global sales, global producing organization. We want to have Bursar pumps implemented all around the world. The vision really is to have like floating water wheel pumps in any river that you can imagine and supplying water without any fuel, without cost, but also at no pollution, just in harmony with nature.
Okay, and just for the record, we teach Cleantech startups to build a business, not to be nice for the environment. So if you have a proposition, it needs to be cheaper than other alternatives. Pratap's Bursar Pump is cost competitive and it replaces diesel pumps in a $60 billion market for water irrigation. So there's some business to do here too. Okay, very shortly about agriculture. How to create a sustainable food future in order to feed 10 billion people by 2050. World Resources Institute came out in December last year. The data was somewhere all out of the last 3 months because it's pouring news about this if you look in the media. Here we go, very quickly. We will need how to feed 10 billion people without using more land while lowering emission. That's the central problem statement of this hundreds of pages report, very worth reading. We need to produce 56% more food, and agriculture currently uses around 50% of our agricultural surface, and we cannot use more because we need it for forests and wetlands in order to, convert CO2 into oxygen, and we need an emissions reduction of 67%, right? Again, in similarity with maybe Cleantech, you see the agtech markets now also growing very, very strongly, right? Cleantech was growing with 15% per year. Agtech is now growing with 37% per year. And I expect that maybe we could see the same as we saw in energy. It's going up until it explodes for the positive, right? On the right-hand side, I won't go too much in it. The two big buckets, the two big pieces of the pie, as if so far you see mostly propositions which are close to the consumers, supply-demand platforms, etc. But I think we will start to see more IoT once we go up in the value chain with agricultural manufacturing, production, etc. So the smaller pieces there will become bigger, like the other technologies we've seen in Cleantech also, except for solar PV and wind. And with 70% of the world's population living in cities, 10 billion people, 70%, that's 7 billion people. So if this would be the current world, we would all live in cities, right? So we need agriculture back in our cities, in our minds. We have to produce food where we consume it and not fly around the world, otherwise we use too much CO2. Just one example here, global market insight. So vertical farming in cities, I guess you all know it. You have a famous Estonian startup, it's very good at this. It's called Click and Grow. Do you know it? Yes, Y Combinator startup. I have their device in my kitchen and it works really well. This market is also predicted to go very, very strongly. From 2.5 billion in 2017 to 30 billion in 2024. It's just another example. Double-digit CAGRs in the predictions for Cleantech in the near-term future. One small case, just 2 months ago, so in the Climate Kick Accelerator, I'll tell you about it in a second. Climate Kick Accelerator is Europe's largest cleantech accelerator. By now, there are more than 1,000 cleantech startups in it, and I'm proud to tell you that these cleantech startups altogether already closed more than $500 million in external finance. It started around 2010, 2012. This is, to my knowledge, the biggest deal from cleantech startups so far. And it happened in January. And the startup is called Insect. It's a French startup which basically has an insect, basically manufactures insects, right? In order to be able to make alternative proteins for animal food. And they in one go now became the global leader. So this startup is backed by EIT Climate Kick, which I'll tell you more about in a second. Okay, so these are just 3 categories out of the Kashan matrix. If you would give me 2-3 more hours, I could discuss the same, but I can tell you that you will see the same, and probably even more, if you start discussing transportation and battery storage. There's revolutions going on too. You see learning curves coming to the market, technologies coming into the money, and then investments exploding, right? Cleantech provides a $1 trillion opportunity of a lifetime for cleantech startups and scale-ups, but we're in a hurry, Estonia. Very shortly, how to accelerate cleantech then if we're in a hurry. Now, I've personally had the privilege to work with 3 big business accelerators. The first one is Climate Launchpad, now the largest cleantech business idea competition in the world, this year running in 50 countries. Climate Kick I told you about. InfoDev World Bank, overseeing an enormous amount of incubators and accelerators in developing countries. And I will shortly show you some examples of Climate Launchpad and Climate Kick in a couple of minutes. Now, where are they sitting in terms of clean tech development? So this is what you probably know, the 6 stages of a clean tech startup, going from ideation to hypothesis to getting out of the building and validate with potential customers, then taking an investment and build and take off, then scale, and then hopefully exit an IPO. Climate Launchpad sits in the ideation phase and developing green ideas, etc. And we founded Climate Launchpad in order to have good ideas into the Climate Kick Accelerator. But this sort of, we didn't know. This sort of exploded into 50 countries in 5 years. It's just amazing, right? So you sort of know where it sits. I'm going to invite the startups among you because I'm a big fan. I call Silicon Valley, I call Estonia the Silicon Valley of Europe. If you want to do something about the world, apply in the Climate Launchpad and find these guys here in the front row from Cleantech for Estonia. I will end my presentation with that call to action. Very shortly, Climate Launchpad. So last year it ran successfully in 50 locations. So we had 50 2-day boot camps with a team of 8 trainers. We traveled quite a bit. Offset my CO2 reduction, by the way, in 45 countries on 5 continents. Here's a very short impression moving of the finals last year, where the Prime Minister of Scotland was also there, which for us was also a big privilege and a big honor.
At a time.
You know?
This is a really unique thing we have here.
It's time for innovation to step in, to start addressing really whole-scale systems change in our cities, in the way we're using land, in the way we produce materials, in the way we think about ourselves and the planet.
Entrepreneurs love to go fast, and fighting climate change is all about speed.
They make perfect partners for cities, for corporates, for public authorities, for investors.
It's about 40% of the teams that apply are female founders.
This is a great opportunity if you love to help people, world.
Last year we had 35 countries, this year 44. This generation seems to combine this wish for impact. I want to do something useful while I'm on the planet. I want to have impact.
We've learned now how it is to pitch in a really international environment with a lot of competitors.
It's a great opportunity for us to show our product and represent our country.
We are really excited to see all these people from around the world there.
We are very happy that we can represent Malaysia.
Those 2-day boot camp back in August was very, very helpful to know our customer even better.
We're thinking global and we're acting local. And that's what you guys are doing here as Climate Launchpad and Ideas. Don't just think about your own region, your own town, your own country.
You have these amazing local solutions that might not work for every single part of the world, but they will make a big impact in their country.
We now have supported about 3,000 teams. Of those, some of them will become really big companies.
We really start to look at which ideas might work together to have the greatest potential for change.
A lot of countries, so many smart ideas, it's amazing.
In third place, Prover.
Such a great feeling, this is really proud.
We got approached by several investors.
It's a really rewarding moment. Second place, JSP.
The national lead trained us really well with all this.
It's a pleasure being here and this atmosphere, this environment.
It's like a confirmation for us.
It's perfect, thank you.
First prize, Eco 2 blocks.
It's fantastic to be hosting this event. Innovation is vital to tackling climate change.
I've seen so many great ideas.
It's been an incredible experience.
I was fascinated by how much dedication, how much innovation you see here.
Let's conquer the world. Let's save the world.
Even if you didn't win, the real win is if you find paying customers. That's what this in the end is about. That's how you build a business.
Climate Launchpad. Global Grand Final in beautiful Edinburgh, just 5 months ago. Okay, join us. Find the Climate Launchpad website if you're interested. You find stories, interviews, also Estonian champions, because some Estonian startups made it into the global finals. Very briefly about Climate Kick. Climate Kick came out with a new strategy just in January, because also Climate Kick realizes that we have to step up, given the fact that we're in a hurry with climate change. So I'm going to share the 5 most important words out of their new strategy, which is currently now revisited in what it could mean for implementation and implications for the accelerator. It's expected in the summer. So, big words: system innovation, systemic change, so not change only on the individual startup level, but how can we have companies, startups, stakeholder clusters work together in order to create systemic impact. Scaling, of course, something that Estonia is good at, the country with the highest unicorns percentage per capita. Community engagement, and of course the 2050 circular economy. Now, just about the circular economy, very briefly, McKinsey estimated this to be a 1.8 trillion economic opportunity by 2030. So again, this is not activism, this is economy, right? Just the size of the opportunity. Now, just to finalize this part, I have the privilege to coach Anne Runel from Reverse Resources already for a couple of years, and I'm now a proud member in their advisory board. And Anne is actually doing something that, to my opinion, matches this new strategy of Climate Kick, because she's not going to a client, she's taking on an entire sector. She's applying circular economy principles for systemic change in the fashion industry. Again, I'm repeating myself. Repeating is the mother of teachings. It's Estonian software. This is her story.
Ma ei tunne end nagu kangelane. Ma olen lihtsalt uudishimulik. Tartu Ülikoolis Eestis ei rääkinud keegi keskkonnasõbralikkusest. Ma õppisin majandust 6 aastat. Ja ükskõik kuhu ma vaatasin, nägin vananenud mudeleid, lineaarseid, mitte ringlevaid. Mudeleid minevikust, mis ei sobi tuleviku jaoks. Nii et ma pidin leidma endale oma tee. Ma hakkasin küsimusi küsima ja inimesi kuulama, et õppida. Keskkonnasõbralikkuse kohta, rõivatööstuse kohta, tuleviku kohta. Majanduses käib kõik numbrites, aga numbrid peavad kokku klappima. Moetööstuse maailmas olid numbrid valed. Igal aastal toodetakse rohkem kui 100 miljardit rõivaeset. 15% toodetud materjalidest läheb selles protsessis raisku. See ei saanud nii jätkuda. Ma otsustasin kokku kutsuda meeskonna samamoodi mõtlevatest ja pühendunud ekspertidest. Mis oleks, kui me saaksime luua turu, kust brändid ja disainerid saaksid osta jääkmaterjale tootjatelt, et luua uusi riideid. Ainuüksi neist jääkidest oleks võimalik teha 10 miljardit T-särki aastas. Me vähendaksime värske vee ja ressursside kasutust ja teeksime järgmise sammu, et moematerjali ring sulgeda. Sellest tulenev mõju maailmale oleks tohutu. Uudishimu viib sind kaugele, nagu ka pühendumus. Aga me peame selle muutuse tegema koos. Tulevik ei ole koht, kuhu me minemas oleme. See on koht, mille me loome.
Okay, Anna's not the only one in Estonia. There's a lot of startups under the umbrella of Cleantech for Estonia, Cleantech Forest. I have the privilege to work already for 5 years with Cleantech Forest. It's really a privilege because, to my opinion, if I would benchmark it with others, by the way, others are doing also well, but Estonia is one of the best, to be honest. What should I say about it? I met Marit Sal-Lingbeck, she's not here. She's the co-founder of Cleantech Forest at in Silicon Valley at the Cleantech Open competition in 2013. I was with a group of 16 climate kickstarters. We were having a tour with them through Silicon Valley. And some of them were pitching at the Cleantech Open, and Marit was part of the Cleantech Open organization. And I asked Marit, what are your dreams? You talk about dreams when you're in startups, right? She said, my dream is to set up a Cleantech ecosystem in Estonia. And she did, right? The team is now sitting here. Marit is back in Silicon Valley. She's married and she lives in Silicon Valley. But I would like to mention her here because she has done amazing work, because I've seen her starting this when there was still not so much, right? And now there's a thriving team. Here's the team in a picture in the Global Grand Final. Last year. Left-hand side, Erki. Erki, would you please stand up and would you please give Erki a warm applause? Thank you very much. Kadri, please stand up, give Kadri a warm applause. Thank you. And Trine, yeah. And there's 2 persons I don't know of the team. Please stand up and give them an applause too. Thank you. These guys are doing the hard work behind the scenes. And you know, they're doing it all for a good cause. Well, success. This is, she's married, so I'm mixing up her surname. Marianne Mega Fonseca now, right? So Estonia, we started in 2014 the Climate Lines, but in the beginning we were small. But in 2016, Estonia volunteered to organize the Global Grand Final in Estonia, and they set a new standard for us in terms of global competitions. It was really a professional event, and guess what? Estonia won the Global Grand Final that year, and that's Marianne, right? So another champ, I know she's here. I said hello, where's Marianne? Ah, give her a warm applause, thank you very much. So why am I mentioning this? I'm not only putting these people in the spotlight because I like them on a personal level. It's very important for each Cleantech ecosystem you create champions that, you know, the other ones following can relate to. We see that in every country. So again, remember the Kashan metrics. Here's the army of Estonian Cleantech startups. Drum roll, here they come. I don't have time to talk about all of them. There's 2 which are officially probably not under the umbrella of Cleantech. That's Bolt, formerly Taxify, right? They were already way before Cleantech Forest was here. Bolt just very recently entered into the city of Madrid with electric scooters. Probably no news for you. And there's Skeleton Technologies in storage. They make ultra capacitors, which in many cases are way better solutions than lithium-ion. What I really like about Tavi is that if we have the boot camps here, he's there and helps the startups. So I really appreciated it if champions help Cleantech startups to grow. And the yellow, the empty one there it's a call to action. Estonia, the world needs your software. It's a big problem to solve in the world. I cannot talk about these, but guess what? Most of them are here. You can find them in the demo area. And for the last time, it's a call to apply. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a very nice conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ron. So we still have some time to also ask some questions. And let me first of all check the Twitter feed. Has anybody posted any questions using the hashtag MELTForum 2019? So far, no. But you can do so still. So if not for this session, then for the next session. So can we just see some hands if somebody wants to present a question to Ron? So it's always the same thing, so very slow to start up. So you said, yeah, there was the hand up. So can we have?
I see somebody in the back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I had a question regarding, you showed that the energy, creating energy changes towards solar and wind turbines.
Yeah.
The question and the picture I see in Estonia is that everyone is so fond of these clean energies.
Mm.
But the question in a dense area is that not in my backyard. So
Yeah.
how is this solved actually, that basically the change of the turbines, there's so many projects also in Estonia which are stopped because of that.
Yeah. Same problem in the Netherlands. We are one of the most densely population in the world. Yeah, what can I say about it? Not in my backyard. It's sort of a political decision. But what you see is that it's maybe also something that's specific for a country. I mean, I don't see that in Germany, right? Where there's more than 50% renewable energy. So I think it's also a question of mentality of people. But yes, of course, you have to be realistic about things. But there's so many more. Cleantech that you could use. In the Netherlands, we use a lot of heat pumps and geothermal, for instance, in combination with solar cells and battery storage, etc. It doesn't always have to be a windmill. My personal hunch is that the availability of Cleantech will now become so abundant that this will be solved, because we're thinking functional now with Cleantech. So windmills and solar modules. But solar, for instance, has become an enormous opportunity for designers in all sorts of objects where you wouldn't even see it, right? Windmills are coming in different shapes and forms. I mean, we're used to the very big wind turbines, but in India now we see wind turbines which are very, very small at the cost of an iPhone. So it doesn't always have to be windmills. I guess that's my answer. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Yes, there's a hand up over there.
Yeah.
Hello, Ron.
Hello.
I'm Ragnar from Technopol. We also help Greentech startups and scale-ups. I wanted to ask about alternative food, about fungus and all park food. How you can comment that? Is that solves our food problems in the future?
Yeah. So if we talk food, we talk mostly about eating meat, right? Because we feed cows, etc., and then we use a lot of water, and it has a lot of agricultural emissions. My hunch is, I was doing some research because I expected the question. I cannot prove it, but my gut feel is that the preferences of the consumers are changing, and we're seeing, it's probably a little bit early to tell, but we're seeing evidence of that. For instance, plant-based meat now is very, very, very hard, quickly growing in the US. CEOs of scale-ups there say that it's a multi-trillion opportunity, but people do not even see it. You would like some proof? Just last week, Burger King, I mean the Whopper, came out with a plant-based Whopper. It's called the Impossible Whopper. Now, I don't think that Burger King would do that if they don't think that would be the trend, right? So the short question is, I think it's on the demand side where we'll see this happening. Adidas came out with a shoe of recycled ocean waste plastic, and it exceeded all of their expectations in sales. They sold 11 million of these shoes. There's been research from the Good Food Institute, which has a solid research background, that the preference for plant-based meat and all these alternatives is higher in China than in the US. I don't have any data in China, but you can imagine that this is shifting. In Brazil, the largest egg producer of South America came out last month with a plant-based egg. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's a lot happening.
So there are lots of interesting examples that we can look at. All right. So thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
And before we send you off, so can we just give you a small gift?
Sorry, I was already on
Yes,
the stage.
absolutely.
Wow.
So for all the presenters, we have here, well, a caricature, a portrait, or a picture done by a talented Estonian artist, Olga Raag, who should be sitting somewhere in this audience. Where is Olga? Can we see her?
There she is.
There she is. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Applause
Olga.
for
Thank
Olga,
you.
and this is the gift for you. All right, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Here it is for you.
Like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you.